Hello, I'm Ashley Thomas and here is my review for Skyscraper, directed by a Rawson Marshall Thurber. He also directed movies We Are the Millers and Central Intelligence. So for me that didn't really say a lot, and I was already on a downward spiral to begin with. So the movie stars Dwayne Johnson and Neve Campbell. They play husband and wife, Will Sawyer and Sarah Sawyer. And Dwayne Johnson plays a former FBI agent who just happens to end up having to rescue his family from a towering inferno, you could say. You get these terrorists who come into this state-of-the-art skyscraper. They set it on fire, and so it's up to Dwayne Johnson to save the day. So when it comes to performances, everyone was okay. You know, Dwayne Johnson was okay. Dwayne Johnson was Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Neve Campbell was okay. They were all likeable, or they were both likeable. In moments, the performances were a little bit dull and wooden, and there would also be moments in the movie in which a character would be saying something or doing something and it didn't quite reflect what was going on within the scene. For example, you'd have this dramatic scene happen or just occur, and then you'd have these two characters within the scene, but they would act in a way that didn't quite reflect or match what was actually going on within that scene. Very odd. It sort of really stood out to me, and maybe that's just me, I don't know. Let me know below if you also thought the same thing. But yeah, the performances within this film sometimes didn't quite match with what was actually going on within the scene. So something really dramatic would happen, and then this character would act in a really sort of chilled kind of way, and I'd be like, would you really react like that? Or am I just being too picky maybe? I don't know. The script was very cringy in places, and a little bit like the performances, really. The script, it was very dull and wooden in places. And for example, there was this one particular line that really made me cringe, and it was between Dwayne Johnson's character Will Sawyer and Neve Campbell's character Sarah Sawyer, and Dwayne Johnson would say, I love you, and Neve Campbell will reply, you better. And that was sort of like a reoccurring line throughout the film, and it just, Am I just being too picky? But no, that really made me cringe. And I'm like, it's like, it was just dull, very dull. So I feel like with films like this, which basically try to be the new Die Hard, they try to be the next, Die Hard. I think with movies like this, you really need you need a good villain. It has to have a good villain. A villain which has depth, which has personality, which has a really good performance. And so, yeah, a real character that you end up really not liking, and an iconic villain. You really want, like Hans Gruber was an iconic villain, and it was all down to the way Alan Rickman played Hans Gruber. He gave that character a sort of unique personality. It felt original, and I just think you need villains like that in movies like this. But for me, with Skyscraper, the villains in Skyscraper are really weak, and for me that was a big disappointment. And one of the movie's biggest flaws, though I will say I did kind of like the performance of a Roland Møller. I think that's how you say his name. He plays sort of he is one of the leaders of this terrorist group, and I kind of liked his performance. But if I actually come to think of it, his performance was one of the very, very few things that I do remember from this movie. This movie overall was just very forgettable, and very poor sort of structure when it comes to the narrative, the way the narrative plays out, especially during the first act. It really sort of struggles to get going, I felt, and it ended up being a little bit of a slog, to be honest with you, a little bit boring, I found it. Yeah, so for me, the film really did, struggled to take off, but it never did. This film, you think there are moments where you're thinking, we're getting somewhere now, and it's starting to get a little bit exciting, and then all of a sudden it just goes flat. It's like the film just, you could see that it's trying to build momentum and try to really lift off and go somewhere, and then all of a sudden it just crashes. And that's how the entire film sort of felt to me. There are some sort of exciting moments in the movie, but like when it becomes to sort of maintaining and building that momentum, they really did fail. And overall, the film just feels very flat. The actual experience of Skyscraper was just very flat and dull. Like there's that one moment where Dwayne Johnson is climbing the skyscraper, and in the trailers, it looked pretty good. It felt very dramatic, and got the blood racing sort of thing. But then when it came to actually watching it within the movie, it was just totally different. It sort of just lacked any punch, or it just didn't come across as quite as dramatic as it did in the trailer. The trailer was actually more exciting than the actual scene within the movie itself. In a way, for me, this movie was kind of like a roller coaster that sort of breaks down just before the excited part. That's what the film was like for me. What I did really like about the movie was it had a heart right at its core. Right in the middle of this film, underneath all the mess, was a heart. And I like that. It does sort of get buried under all the mess and sort of lost. So you sort of lose the focus on that heart. But I like that, that it was there, and there was this one particular moment which I thought was really, really nice, and I really liked Dwayne Johnson's performance within this particular moment. It was a very tender moment. It was a nice scene, quite an emotional scene as well, and it was sort of all helped and aided by Dwayne Johnson's performance. And if you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm on about. It's towards the end of the movie, and it requires his character, Dwayne Johnson's character, comforting his daughter. And it's a powerful moment. And again, it's all helped by Dwayne Johnson's performance. And I never thought I'd find myself saying that. But it was a very nice, tender moment within this movie. And I just didn't think this film felt original enough. It didn't feel different enough. It felt like a cheap knockoff or a cheap remake of Die Hard. And in a way, well, it's not actually, this is not a terrible movie. It's not unwatchable. But for me, it did just feel like a sort of lazy, dull remake of Die Hard. In a way, it reminded me a little bit of the RoboCop remake, as in that RoboCop remake was a little bit sort of just dull and very average and okay. If Skyscraper was going to be a Die Hard remake, that's what it sort of reminds me of. I also really liked the music by Steve Jomblowski. I think that's how you say his name. And his music in this movie really helped raise the tension when needed in certain moments and scenes, and also helped add this sort of tenderness and emotion to moments when needed as well. His music really sort of helped add that impact for certain scenes, and especially during the action scenes as well. It really tried to elevate those action scenes, even though you could tell really when the way they played on screen was very sort of clunky, and they really sort of struggled to build momentum. But the music did its best to sort of really lift these scenes. So yeah, I really dug the score actually. It's one of those things, like that moment I just mentioned with Dwayne Johnson and his daughter. The score for me was just one of those things that I remembered about the film because I really liked it. It was, overall it was a forgettable film, but I remember the score because it was quite nice. I liked it. So yeah, this film I wanted it to feel original. I wanted it to feel fresh, even if it was sort of like, or like, okay, they were sort of trying to make the new or the next Die Hard, really, you could say, the Towering Inferno or something along those lines. It just didn't feel original enough for me. It didn't feel like it was his own thing. And I tell you one thing, also, this movie really should have been a lot more violent as well. I think the film sort of lacked the violence that it needed, but it lacked many things for me, which should have I just found it a very dull experience. But it's not unwatchable. There are moments that are sort of exciting. There are scenes with Dwayne Johnson sort of swinging around the building, and there are moments which make your stomach turn, which actually made me think, this film would probably be a little bit more fun in IMAX or that 4DX. Maybe, actually, I would highly recommend checking this out in 4DX. I haven't, but there are moments in this film which I think would benefit from 4DX. So yeah, watching it in 2D, there were those moments which were like, woo, and I'm afraid of heights anyway, so perhaps that helped. And so yeah, it's not a totally unwatchable movie, but it failed for me on so many levels when it came to performances, script, and sort of the story and the character's journey and all of that. It just sort of lacked any real focus and energy and urgency even. It was just a very dull, flat ride for me. But it does have certain moments which were nice. It was just okay, really. It was a very forgettable movie as well. But no, they are my thoughts and opinions of Skyscraper, and I will be giving Skyscraper a D+. What do you guys think of Skyscraper? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know below and let's get a discussion going. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see future reviews from me and unboxings and trailer reactions and all of that and everything geeky, then don't forget to hit subscribe.